Oh,
Yes.
I've clicked the right buttons. Well, look, apologies for that, guys. I promise I won't eat into the questions and answers time as well. I really want to make sure that we answer as many of the questions that you have today when we go through it. As I mentioned before, and I'll keep introductions really quick so we can get into the juicy material. My name is Adam Hetherington. I'm part of the agency team at Google. So our job is to work with the top agencies across the world to make sure that they are preparing for what's going on now, but also what they're doing in terms of looking into the future, so that they can then relay that to their clients and help future-proof their businesses. Today, what I wanted to really talk to you about was a little bit of research that we did with a London-based consultancy called the Behavioural Architects. They're behavioural economics consultancy, one of the best in the world, the first one set up in the UK. And we did this research over a number of years with them. The third iteration of it was supposed to be coming out, and then the pandemic happened. So we'll be getting back on that horse very, very, very soon. But I'll share some of the details with you when we go through this presentation. If you do want to do a little bit of digging yourself, if you just Google decoding decisions, you'll see a Think with Google PDF come up. It's about 98 A4 pages. So I'm going to try and distill that down into a 20-minute talk for you today. But if this does spark some excitement and interest and anything like that, I would definitely recommend going there, as well as speaking to the guys at Netpeak as well. Essentially, what we wanted to do with this research was to try and understand, okay, how the digital consumer has, or how the consumer, not even the digital consumer, how the consumer has changed in the digital world. So we first have to do a little bit of definitions, because this comes from an academic point of view. So I need to do some clarifications at the very beginning. The journey that we're trying to establish is, okay, at the top of this slide here, you'll see trigger. Okay, so that is any moment that prompts me to go and make a decision. So when I woke up this morning, it was my need for a black coffee. You know, it was the lack of caffeine in me. That was my trigger to get up and go. Or I recently traveled to the UK. So it was the first time I've traveled in 2.5 years. And my trigger there was actually seeing all these beautiful flights going around and thinking, oh, I need to go and book a vacation, or I need to do something else. So a trigger is anything that a consumer that happens to a consumer that really gets them on the path to purchase, not whether they purchase or not. Okay. At the very bottom, we have that purchase. So, you know, the trigger has happened. I went down and bought my black coffee earlier on today, and then I made that purchase. However, what you'll find is in the middle here, there's two other sequences that happen. First one is the exploration, and this is an expansive phase that a consumer engages in. This is happening more and more and more as the digital world becomes we become more used to the digital world as a consumer. The reason for that is these little things. So little mobile phones. Like if I asked everyone on the call here today to go in and tell me their last 5 Google searches, I don't think you'd want to do that, because your mobile phone, your mobile device, you're connected to the internet. So it's a get information and put it into my brain. I want to get information right now. And that's the exploratory phase. Okay. So in my case, when I was looking at all the different flights, I had 22 different tabs open in terms of holiday destinations that I could go to. What you have then is also the evaluation phase. So this is a reductive exercise. So after the expansive, there's evaluation, which comes reductive. And this is when I start to make decisions about what is valuable to me as a consumer, and start weeding through the gaps. So the example I like to give here is, so Black Friday, or like November last year, was the first year that I bought an electric toothbrush. Changed my life. I had never had one before, and I love it now, and it's the best thing that I've ever done. But I went through an exploratory phase, right? I went and I had loads of different tabs open, looking for the best deals. I was Googling what's the best toothbrush, which is kind of comes back to that, you know, get information and put it in my brain now. That was 22 tabs on my Chrome device. And then what I did is I started to reduce that down. I actually found the toothbrush that I was going to purchase, but I had 3 different stores that I could purchase it from. I'm based in Dublin, so 2 of them were based in the city, and 1 of them was based purely as an online player. And I was in that evaluation phase that try and figure out, okay, which one do I want to go to? Now, in both the toothbrush example, where I actually did make that purchase, I fell down and I went into that purchase cycle, which is where I get experience. And that's what, again, the brand managers on the call today really know and understand, you know, going from product to services, from services to solutions, and solutions to experience. That's the great playground for building loyalty. So in the toothbrush example, it worked. But what you also find is that there's a second line. There's not just a line down from evaluation, there's also a line back into exploration. And my example here is that holiday that I was thinking about booking. I haven't booked any yet. I might not book any for a long time. I'm still in that cycle of exploration and an evaluation. And what we wanted to do with this research was to try and figure out, okay, how as marketers can we effectively work with our communications teams, our media teams, in order to help the consumer out of the exploration and evaluation phase and down into that purchase cycle. So that's essentially what the research we did. Now, we made a couple of rules to the research, which I'll go through. The first one, at the very top, you'll see what we decided was off limits. Okay, so off limits, number 1 was branding, basically the brand strategy. For anyone on the call that has done a rebrand, either of themselves or helped another client do a rebrand, you know how tough and long and painful that process is. So what we decided was, okay, brand strategy off the table for this research, right? It's not about that individual user getting to purchase, that it's a bigger kettle of fish. Okay, so that one was off strategy. The other one that I think is really important to state and to restate and to state again is at the very bottom there, and that's pricing strategy. So after a business has been set up, and after it has established itself in the market, looking at what it costs to provide its services or products or experiences, that's very difficult for us as a marketer to, again, change and adjust in a very quick and efficient way without, you know, a whole digital transformation piece. So we said, actually, pricing strategy is off the table there. Let's just look at what's happening in this middle piece. And what we found is, and there's plenty of examples of this in the longer term paper. It's probably the kind of the most interesting couple of pages, but I'll go over them really briefly. The first one is category heuristics, and essentially what this is it's shortcuts that we make in our brain as humans. You know, as decision makers, we're making assumptions very, very, very fast based off of what is in front of us, and we jump to conclusions very quickly. An example of this is so megapixels on my camera. Okay, megapixels on my mobile phone. I know if the number is big, that's a good thing. If the number is low, that's a bad thing, right? So my heuristic there, or what's important for me as a consumer, is make a really clear statement about what's valuable and just send it to the consumer. And whether they make assumptions, you know, that's totally fine by them. Another one is gigabits in a laptop. So like, does your laptop have, you know, 500 gigs of hard drive space versus 200? It might actually, you know, it makes me make a decision quite quickly. Second one on the right there is authority bias. This one is fairly self-explanatory, but I think it's an important one to state as well, and the differences in authority. So it's not just a case of having authority, but also what is the source of that. Example I like to give here is, so I don't understand wine. To me, it's flavored vinegar. I have no clue. But when I go to a friend's house, I know, okay, I should bring a bottle of wine. So what I do is I go into the store and I look for one that has the gold sticker that says, you know, wine choice of the year 2020, 2021, something like that. And that's me looking at that authority, making a decision, and it's helping me to go from that exploration and evaluation faster down versus an alternative brand. Next one is scarcity, fairly simple. Scarcity about time, about availability, and then also about exclusivity. Are you part of an exclusive club? And that's where I think the branding teams will really love to get involved with. The power of free. A really important one with this is not just the word free, right? It's also, is that actually transferring value? In the longer paper, there is an example where it looks at holiday purchasers, people buying flights and package holidays. And one example we give is, okay, free travel insurance versus free room upgrade. Now, both have the word free, but what really, one drives value, the free room upgrade, and one doesn't drive a huge amount of value, free travel insurance, because honestly, I hope to never have to use it anyway. So it's not just using the word free, but also trying to find value for your consumer in that moment. Social norms is a fairly easy one. So reviews are really important things here. Making sure your brand is out and heard. And then finally, the power of now. So the immediacy that you can try and instill to drive action. So like that's the theory, okay? These are the theory. This is what was on and off the table. So, but what did we practically do with that? Well, we did a purchase simulation. So we asked 12,000 consumers in the UK. We asked them, hey, what's your favorite brand over multiple categories? And I'll give you all the categories now in a second. I'm going to use clothing as an example, but we have everything from automobiles to holidays to flights to mortgages, like anything and everything in between, right? But we did a purchase simulation and we said, hey, what's your favorite brand? And 2, give us a number 2 or an alternative one. And we asked all 12,000 people this. And then what we did is, what we wanted to do was to run a simulation to basically see what we could adjust within that messy middle, excluding branding strategy, really important again, excluding branding strategy, excluding pricing strategy. What could we adjust in terms of that messy middle in order to help drive action or see where we could drive action? And what this looked like, this is just a really quick example of what it would look like, is we try to make it as real world as possible while still being a simulation. So we created landing page, or not landing pages, but search results pages. So when a user typed in, or the participant typed in clothing in this example, that they would get to see what would look like modern search. And the reason for that is to try and make it as real world as possible. But again, these aren't real search results page. These are simulations that we have set up. So the first thing we did is, and the clothing example. So I'm wearing Adidas Gazelles at the moment. I had to go and speak at a talk over in Nottingham recently, and I needed to buy new shoes after all of the lockdowns. So I went and I just picked up Adidas Gazelles. So I'm going to use that as an example, but other shoe brands are out there. So I'm not saying one over the other, but that's what I'm wearing right now. So in my example, we have asked, okay, these 12,000 consumers, what's your favorite brand? And in my case, I will just say Adidas Gazelles. Brilliant. Then what we've done is we gave them the trigger. And so you need to buy new shoes. You're going to go speak at an event. Here's the simulation that we're going to run. Now, as I said at the beginning, is the pricing strategy is off limits. So we've just given £50 for this pair of runners that I'm going to purchase. And we've already given that to each of the consumers, right? Or each of the participants in the study. And we said, you've got the trigger, you've got the power to purchase, go and do it, if that's what you like. All the users typed in clothing, or in my case, runners, and then up popped my favorite brand at the top in terms of its search results page. 100% of our participants said, yes, I would click on that. I would purchase those shoes with us. Amazing, right? So they did the basic thing in terms of what we wanted them to do. Then what we did is we had the stated favorite brand. So in my case, Adidas Gazelles. We had, you know, a non-existent brand just below that. And then in the third place, what we did is we just introduced the presence of a second brand, right? So that you know, mine's Adidas Gazelles, it could be like Nike Runners or Pumas or something like that, right? We have our stated favorite at the very, very top. And then all we have done is we've introduced the second brand. Again, brand and communications off limits and pricing. So it costs exactly the same for my stated favorite versus this alternative. Also, what we haven't done yet is we haven't changed any of the text. We haven't messed around with that messy middle, you know, category heuristics. We haven't made one better or worse. We haven't gone near any of that. We have simply just introduced this alternative brand. And what we found was quite surprising to a lot of people. We found that people switched from their stated favorite, and I have to reiterate that again and again. They have already held their hand up and said, yes, these Adidas Gazelles are my absolute favorite. We found that 30% of people within the clothing category, and you can see all the categories here up on screen, switched from their stated favorite to an alternative just because the alternative was present, which I thought was absolutely surprising. Now, if you are a new startup, and I've done this, or an equivalent version of this talk for our Adopt a Startup program at Google and new startups, and that's eye-opening. You know, what does that say? It says that there's huge opportunity there just by being exposed, by being present at that right moment for that right user. Now, what we did in terms of the messy middle is we helped to supercharge those 6 and 7 categories across the board. So one example is in terms of authority bias, you'll see that the text has changed. So instead of saying, you know, celebrity's favorite, we have said it's fashion designer's favorite. So we've given something valuable right there that has a little bit more authority than before. You'll see at the very, you know, the stated favorite at the top versus the second favorite when it's supercharged. You'll see more reviews, for example. So the social norms, it's a slightly higher review, but actually the quantity is the key thing here. And you'll see slight different tweaks across those 6 different categories to try and entice that user a little bit more towards this alternative brand. Again, pricing completely off and total brand strategy completely off the table. And what we found was that even more people were willing to switch from their stated favorite brand across to an alternative if that alternative was doing its marketing better. Yes, it has to be exposed at the right time. They needed to put themselves forward in front, but then actually what they could do is their core marketing efforts a little bit more cleverly. Finally, what we did is we did something really cheeky. So has anyone heard of the shoe brand Leaf? I hope not, because it doesn't exist. We made it up. We made up a brand completely. Like brand new brand. We just picked it out of the sky across all different categories, including mortgages, autos, absolutely everything. In the clothing category, it was Leaf. And what we did is we put in this fake brand and we supercharged it as well. So for anyone working with those new startups, this is the power of what you can do if you just involve yourself in the messy middle a little bit more cleverly. So the clothing category is over on the right-hand side, and you'll see that 15% of people would switch from their, and I can't emphasize this enough, their stated favorite brand. They said, this is my absolute favorite. 15% of people within the clothing category would switch to an alternative. And if you think of the market size of the clothing category within the UK, that's massive in terms of revenue opportunity. The one I also wanted to highlight on the very left-hand side as well is also mortgages. So, you know, some people say a bank's a bank's a bank's a bank, you know, and a solution provider is a solution provider. So we had over a third of people would switch from their stated favorite mortgage provider to an alternative, despite it being an extremely, extremely important part of their life for 25, 30 years, however long it was going to be, with a huge investment and their family home, very important, would switch to a brand that we made up, that doesn't exist, with branding and pricing strategy off the table, just because they were doing their marketing communications better. And I hope when you listen to the rest of the talks that this pops back into your head again and again, looking at the opportunity for marketers to drive real growth. Like, if at the end of this and everyone changed their titles from marketing or digital marketing or marketing executive, chief marketing officer to chief growth, I would be delighted, because that's what you are trying to drive. Okay, so okay, Google, what does that mean? In terms of practicalities. My phone listened to me there. In terms of practicalities, we found three kind of core categories, and I'm going to go through them little by little, but also happy for you guys to ask any questions on this as well as we go forward. First one is ensuring brand presence. So you just seen that at the very beginning, people willing to switch from their stated favorite to an alternative. Now, an existing brand, but to an alternative, just because that brand is present. Now, what's the TLDR on that? Like, what's the secret sauce? Really, what it has to do is coverage and share of voice. Okay, so we're finding that the amount of searches people are conducting are obviously ever increasing, but then we also are finding that the variety of those searches are ever increasing across many different platforms. And it goes back to that thing that I said at the very beginning, is would you go and share your 5 searches with everyone on this call in the chat box beside? And it'd probably be a bit of a nervous thing for you to do. And it's that demand for increased connectivity and demand for get information from my phone, put it into my brain right now. So increased coverage and share creates a huge opportunity, massive opportunity out there. Now, how do you do that practically, right? From a Google Ads perspective, which is what I'm an expert in particular, what we're looking at here is the idea of broad match. So increasing the coverage and reaching intent-based audiences and leveraging that across the extent of Google. Now, broad match has come a long way. For anyone that isn't super in the minutiae, in the details, in the weeds with digital marketing, essentially match types are how we input to our Google Ads system to try and capture user demand. And what broad does is it expands that reach. Now, marketing 10, 15, 5, maybe 4 years ago, it was all about narrowing that down, you know, being as specific as absolutely possible. And it made sense at the time. What we have done is we've put a huge amount of time and effort into increasing our ability to be relevant across broad match. So I'm a Liverpool fan for my sins, and they are sponsored by a number of different brands, clothing brands. If I search for Liverpool, it might be a good idea for that clothing brand to reach me at that time, even though it's not exactly what their core keyword or their core query would have been. Now, if anyone else searches for Liverpool, they might be going on a holiday. It's not the most relevant user. So how do we help that? And that's where our investment in terms of our engineering has really doubled down on in the last 2 to 3 years in particular. And this is where it's kind of changed. There's actually quite a lot of our articles on how we've helped improve this, the amount of signals that we're pulling in. So I was talking about user location there. I'm talking about past intent. So what other things have I been involved as a consumer looking for? And would I, as a user, be the right person to search for when searching Liverpool, those sponsored clothing brands showing up? Yes, I would. Someone else with different behaviors, no, I'm not. And that's what the broad match in particular can help us do versus other match types. Now, again, very in the minutiae, and I don't want to get too bogged down for the high-level marketers in the call. One example, and this is like a really poor slide. I'll make sure that these are sent over to the Netpeak team as well afterwards. Actually, I have all the slides, so more than happy to share it with them afterwards. But we had Japan experience. So Japan experienced a huge amount of growth during the Rugby World Cup in Japan. It's an incredible tournament. And what they were finding was they had a huge amount of organic growth, but what it was doing was actually eating into their margins. So they use broad match, but they tied it with the second piece. So they tied it with that piece of automation that looked across all of the different signals to bring it back together and to drive incremental value and incremental sales for them as an organization. Some people say conversions, some people say sales, some people say pounds, some people say dollars. It doesn't matter. It's what you want to drive as a business using broad coverage with the automation will allow that. And that comes on to the second piece. So to intelligently and responsibly, please, employ behavioral science principles. So those 6 categories that I talked about before, using that in terms of your targeting strategy for your marketing, as well as appealing to that right audience at the right time. What's the TLDR on that? Okay, so like how does that actually come into play? It's through machine learning powered bidding, basically. So smart bidding is the easiest way to explain it. So pairing broad match with that safety net of automated bidding that allows us to dig into those signals and evaluate whether a consumer searching in a broad term is very likely to purchase with us or very unlikely. And if they're very unlikely, what we need to do is stay away from that. So the key with the automated bidding here is being able to reach in terms of that broad reach, but reach it efficiently. When I say broad, I don't mean, you know, place a pound on each bid as you go through every single search that a user has. It makes no sense. What I'm saying is utilize the Google smart bidding, machine learning powered tools with the data that we have in order to make decisions efficiently on what is valuable and what is not valuable. So those things always should be paired together. Always pair them together to allow you to have that safety net in terms of backing out of auctions or backing out of queries that are not going to drive the value to your business. So in target ROAS, for example, target return on ad spend, it's trying to drive incremental pound values or dollar values to you based off of basket size and likelihood of users to purchase versus target CPA trying to aim towards a cost per acquisition if you're a lead gen company. So I would always pair the two of them together. Don't do the broad without making sure that you have this foundation in place. When I talked about our development of broad, if you look at the development of Google's ad suite in the last couple of years, it really makes the assumption that you're already here. You've already built that foundations of your smart bidding. And now what we can do is we can add in different pieces to it as well. And you'll find it, I wanted to talk about that one in particular, but you'll find other examples like dynamic search or responsive search ads for anyone kind of in the know. It works in exactly the same way, allowing us more opportunity and greater breadth underpinned by our smart bidding machine learning powered solutions. And that's just a slide saying value-based bidding is driving towards your goals. So it's what you input is also key to what comes out the output. And finally is close the gap, right? Close that gap and get me out of my exploration and evaluation phase of whether I need to book a holiday and get me to buy a flight or a hotel rental, whatever it is. And the TLDR on this is twofold. One is focus on your business goals, and be a little bit more channel agnostic where you can be in terms of how you look at the Google suite. One example of this, but there's many across different platforms, and that's where I'd really implore you to talk to the Netpeak guys in terms of how they can drive the most amount of value for you as a business. That's their expertise is helping to translate this for you in your own business context. But one example is Performance Max, which looks across the entire Google owned and operated suite of products, whether it is search or maps or discovery or YouTube or whatever the case may be. And it says, you know what, actually, as long as I'm driving my ROAS goals, or I want to maximize the amount of acquisitions that I have, cost per conversions with this limited budget, I don't care which one it's on. I don't exactly care which query it is or what exact format. What I want to do is I want to drive bottom line for me and my business. So that's one example of making sure we're doing it. The second one is, this one's really important as well, is as regulations change, as hardware and software changes, also ensuring that we have a privacy-centric measurement helps us to drive and understand users who are coming in and out of that exploration and evaluation phase. So if we have a privacy-focused and central-focused marketing strategy that allows us to measure and model in the best way possible, what we can do is we can evaluate, okay, which users did drop down into that purchase and experience phase and which ones are still on the exploration. So both of those things kind of come in together. A couple of different things is the reason privacy centric is so important to marketers, and it's so important to get it right like now. It's so important to get it right like 2 years ago, right? If it's not crystal clear for you, like this is really important, like right now, is with better measurement, you'll have better remarketing, obviously, but think about the flip side of it. With worse or with lesser measurement, with measurement solutions available, your automation, your smart bidding, which again underpins everything, it starts to get worse because it has less data in which to feed it, has less examples of which to go forward with. And it also means that decision making from your side also gets trickier, because you are having to close one eye while hitting a tennis ball. It's not as beneficial as having both open. And that's where it kind of comes into that automated campaigns. The better visibility, the better we are able to do it. In terms of the products that we have, there are many. You'll hear consent mode, particularly in the EU or Europe, and then also enhanced conversions, which is a really important one. But again, this is something definitely speak to the Netpeak guys about. Essentially, what the way enhanced conversions work is someone goes and purchases on the website. What we do is, what you guys would do as a business is you have a code on the website at that conversion place that takes, an example here is Jane Doe, so her email. It hashes it using SHA-256. So Google doesn't know that email, if you know what I mean. Nobody, like, we can't tell. But what we can do is we can match that to another hashed logged in user on our side and be able to tell, okay, a user did purchase at this point. And we have no PII, no personal identifiable information at all. And it's done in a secure and safe way. With enhanced conversions, it's really helping performance impact. Like, these are the numbers as of today. They're going to get bigger. And if you think about that market share, if you at the very beginning when I said, okay, there's 15% market share for the brand Leaf, right? Imagine if that brand Leaf nailed their privacy-centric measurement as they entered the market, and you are an incumbent clothing brand who haven't nailed it. That gap in market share gets bigger and easier for them to acquire. But yeah, in terms of clients who used enhanced conversions in our initial trials and our initial rollouts, 15% increase in terms of the amount of search conversions that are reported. Now, these sales happened irrespective of enhanced conversions, but because we were able to report them, we're able to feed them back and get an understanding and allow our machine learning and our smart bidding to get an understanding, okay, which ones actually did and what can we get from that. But also when you look at the longer term, so the longer buying cycles, and like, marketing existed before clicks existed, right? It's thousands of years old. But if you look at YouTube, for example, which goes over the 24-hour period, which is when browsers can delete things and everything like that. So from a more visual point of view, as we become more channel agnostic, it becomes increasingly important. So 17% extra conversions reported to YouTube as a result. Because you might see a YouTube ad, but am I necessarily going to go and search for it that day? No, I might do it 2 days later, for example. So it's a really important one to kind of get that understanding, that measurement piece, as well as drive the user down in terms of the marketing strategy. So I am pretty much up on time. So I've got a few minutes for questions, but really what I wanted to say was, whether you're an established brand or whether you are a challenger brand, have a look at this messy middle and get really excited for today, and take down loads of notes that you can, and figure out, okay, what are the couple of things that I'm going to do to help improve my marketing strategy in that middle, in that messy middle, in order to continue to grow within my market, and maybe look at other ones as well. So thanks so much for listening. Please do search Decoding Decisions on Google. You can Google it and you'll get the full research there. And then I would be absolutely delighted if there's any questions that that could be posed back to me. I can't see the chat, so maybe someone from the Netpeak team would be able to let me know.
Yes, it will be me.
Amazing, thanks so much.
Yes. Okay, thank you, Adam. This was a fantastic speech. I've enjoyed so much, and I had so many insights. And in fact, I have the question from the TED. He's asking about this category heuristic from your research. So there are like most valuable major things for the customers, yes, and we should know it and use it in our campaigns. But how to find out them? So are they like most likely for some categories, for some goods, or should we just like going through research all the time to find out these most valuable things for our customers? So maybe you have the answer for this question.
Yeah, so I'm actually at an executive circle in the next three days with INSEAD,
Cool.
the great crew, and we have C-levels in the room. And part of INSEAD's research was that they asked them, okay, for the C-level, C-suite, CEOs, what's the average time, or what's the average distance and time between them actually talking to a user of their product versus when they are now? And the average is 10 to 12 years.
12 years.
Years. And I am not joking, right? Now, these are some of the best C-levels that across Europe, across the world. 10 to 12 years. Honestly, spend 5-10 minutes talking to your customers.
Yeah.
And it's as simple as that. And I wish there was a better way of doing it. I don't know for every individual category, because business is all about context, right? It's all about, okay, you as a context, but spend the 5-10 minutes talking to a customer and really getting to understand and ask why they're interested in this, what's important for them, because some things can be very, very small and slight, like the megapixels, for example. That was found 10-15 years ago when mobile phones started getting better cameras. Oh, we ask consumers what's important. Cameras. What's a shortcut for the brain? This word called megapixel. So now it's so normal to include it in advertising for that category, but actually it was from a conversation with a customer. So don't be like the C-suites at these conferences, and don't take 10 to 12 years to talk to your actual consumers and understand how they use your products and services. Do it more regularly than that.
Okay, yes, thanks so much. Yes, in fact, there is a tricky thing that the customers won't tell you the truth, or they will tell you something that they won't do it, in fact. So it's like, you have to measure it, and you have to discover and to look through very smoothly on its also research, because sometimes you can be like a fool because you just think that, oh, it's important for them, but in fact, not.
Exactly. We have a process in Google that is like, we say feedback is a gift, if you know what I mean. It's kind of, we all kind of know it and we understand it. And what we don't say out loud as much, but it's a process we use, is validation is a key. So feedback is a gift, but you have to go back and validate whether that was
yes,
real, not real. So it's exactly to your saying, and or what you were saying, to just get the feedback in and say this is all truth, 100% perfect. That's actually missing the key step, which is validate. Validate what is real, what is not, and then don't worry. And you will never get 100% truth, but as close as you can.
Yes, just to gather all these feedbacks and then to validate it, to make like A/B tests or something like that. Yes, to check the hypothesis and then to find out that it's really like a truth. Okay, I have also one question. So you told us about this broad approach, so to be in the customer's appearance, to be in their like catch eyes, we have to use this broad approach. But what about the UCP, about the unique selling proposition? What about to be focused on your customers? So this is like, about the niche markets. Now we are like returning in the competitors and the fight between the competitors only using the money. About the budget. The winner is who has more.
So like, and I 100%. So I actually, my history in Google is actually working with small businesses. So David versus Goliath, it was always David. That was the one I was interested in. And actually what this does is it democratizes that. So one is make sure that you have the right data in place, because you're going to feed that machine learning as much as you possibly can. But definitely don't underestimate the amount of backing out of auctions that the automation is trying to do. So like you could be on 100 exact searches, right? Or you could be on 60 or 100 broad searches, but the broad might have entered 1 million different auctions, right? That's more breadth for the broad to figure out, okay, which user is actually valuable to me and which one isn't, and then to try and back out. Now, what you also mentioned there is about, okay, try and get your specific to your customer, especially with the unique selling point. There was a slide that I was thinking about leaving in, but I didn't, but I'll share across with you guys afterwards that has exactly that. And what it does is it looks at, okay, ads or text or content. So an ad that might appeal to me might be very different that appeals to you, that might be very different to appeals to another. And that's where I talked about the likes of responsive search ads. So we announced, I think, a year ago that responsive search ads, and essentially what they are is, you don't give me an ad for a search, you give me 6 different descriptions, 10 different headlines, and we will pull it together. And we announced about a year ago that was actually going to be the main format going forward. And it's thinking about it in that context and finding, okay, how many of these valuable resources can I input to allow the machine learning to output and get the best solution for us. So it's to go back to A/B testing. Like I had a client who said they wanted to A/B test between 2 different ads, and one ad was better in 55% of the time. So therefore they said that was the better ad. Let's show it to 100% of the people. Which to me kind of it made me squirm, because I thought, no, show the ad that's better for the 55% of the people, show them that ad, and then for the 45% that preferred the other, show them the other one. Who cares? So it is about bringing all of those tools together, reaching broad, yes, but then also allowing, not reaching broad with one message or with one way of talking about your USP. Trying to think about that in a broader sense as well.
Okay, I see. Thanks so much. This was a quite cool speech. Yes, thank you. I'm fun and I'm loving this. Yes,
Great.
I'm the marketer, and you like blow my brain about all this like things about this broadness and etc. etc. So thank you so much, and I wish you a good day, and thank you for being with us.
Thanks so much, guys. Look, I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.